Hello to all my booty seekers and cheek chasers. This is the Carpe Natem Podcast. I'm your host, Nate Dello Hoya-Reynoso, and I am so grateful you are listening to this episode. If you're new here, you should know that I believe that my purpose is to uplift, inspire, and educate others to communicate masterfully so that they can better understand themselves and the world around them. I've spent years in the personal development and transformational technology space, and I want to share with you the wisdom that was passed down to me from giants in the industry. So if you're on a journey of self-mastery just like me, looking to make dreams a reality and willing to be a leader for your family and community, then join me in seizing the butt cheeks of life and giving them a big old squeeze. Let's jump into the show. It's a fun intro, right?
That was pretty good. Off the top of your head. All memorized. 100%. That was smooth.
100%. It's not scripted or copy-pasted at all.
I felt that. Honestly, it brought me in.
So today on this podcast, we have an amazing human being sitting across from me here. I am so excited to introduce everyone here to Dan Block. I don't even know where to begin with this man. He is a performer, to say the least, but he will tell you a little bit about his story and the amazing things that he puts his body through for the sake of the art. You're also talented in comedy. I know you're also a musician. You are an amazing... A cancer.
6 foot, so I could be president. I think about that sometimes.
And I believe one day you'll get there. I want you. I would vote for you 100%.
The rules have changed. All that weird shit I did in my 20s, we're good.
Welcome to the show, Dan.
Hello. It's a pleasure to be here.
So it's so hard to put a title on you. Like I was having a struggle even figuring out what to call you because you do so much and the shit that you do is wild, buddy.
I tell people I usually just hurt myself for money. Usually is the quickest answer. Otherwise, just performance artist, although I also hate that.
So the other day I got invited to your event, and just as a preview, I saw performers stick needles in their cheeks, hurt themselves with animal traps. I gave her that. I'm really proud she finally used it. Oh my gosh. I saw somebody collect money in a bucket that was being suspended from her vagina.
Yep.
And it was getting people were throwing 20s and 10s and 50s. It was amazing to see.
I like to call that Space Jam in these trying COVID times. The official title is Circus Sideshow Performer, but when you tell people that, they have no idea what it means. Honestly, they usually have no idea what it means the entire time. As the years have gone by and I'm turning 30, I tell people I'm a magician, sort of. And that's just kind of what I've become, like a fake magician.
But you're such a great performer. Like, you have such a knack for it.
It's comfort. I don't know where to start with that. A kid on mushrooms once gave a freestyle rap at an open mic. And it was amazing because he was so fucking comfortable. And that level of comfort is something that I've tried to attain over years of performance. And at this point, I've just done so much stuff on stage. Nothing really phases me anymore.
Can you remember the first time you performed in front of a group of people?
Did you know the answer to this before you asked that?
No.
Okay, I was in the 3rd grade. My mother put me on the Oprah Winfrey show.
Did she really?
Because they're doing an episode on fitness and they needed an obese child to try out a video game for fat kids. And lo and behold, I was that fat kid.
You got the part?
I did get the part.
What was it like being on national TV?
You're in the 3rd grade. I don't remember much. It's before, and it's a pre-9/11 memory. I don't remember as much. I woke up early. I still had to go to school. She gave me a mug. My mom overwrote the episode with an episode of Dawson's Creek when I was in the 4th grade. So I haven't seen it in 20 years. I've been looking for it. I made a TikTok that went viral that got me in touch with the people that I was on the episode with. But the guy that I made the game, he's dead. Yeah, plot twist. So I haven't actually got a copy of the tape, but I'm working on it with something I can't super talk about, but a project with NBC.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So that's where that started.
So the love for wanting to perform and being in front of people started in 3rd grade. When did you start getting into sideshow performance? Were you like the kid in school that liked magic tricks, that was always class clown?
I always thought magic would get me laid. Fun fact. it doesn't. So I never really got good at it. It's two answers to that. First, when I was in the third grade, I also learned how to flip my eyelids inside out. Mm-hmm. Freaking people out, making people run away crying was like a lot of fun. It's something I tried to do for the rest of my life. But then when I was like 23, I was in the mountains of West Virginia, and a gentleman asked me if I wanted to hammer a nail directly into the center of my face. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And he taught me how to do it. And that was just a hobby until I moved to Austin.
And I've seen you stick this nail in your nose. You don't have any sensation in your nose, or?
Oh, no, it hurts.
Every time. So
it's not like Wolverine. Like every time he brings the claws out, it hurts. It's uncomfortable more than anything. But at a certain point, you do something so many times, like whatever.
When did you decide to involve a taser into this equation?
Oh man, that was a few days after the first time. The guy who taught me also does it, and at the time there were only 3 people in the world who were doing that. So then I was just lucky enough to meet one of them, and he showed me, and then I just did it, and it was fun.
Have you ever had a scenario where it backfired or anything bad happened? Well, you actually. So can we tell about your eye baskets and the
Absolutely.
woman who pulled out? So tell them about the trick itself.
So I was snapping so many mouse traps on my tongue at work that my tongue was turning black and I was bleeding. So I needed to learn something new. So I called my teachers out in North Carolina, Stray Cat Sideshow out of Charlotte. And they hit me up and told me like about these eye hooks to get in touch with this one guy. And I got in touch with him, and he told me where to get some hooks for your eyes that you put in your bottom eyelid and you can attach weights to. And over the years, originally I think it was just like a disco ball and then a Jack in the Box and then a bucket. And now it's a hanging fruit basket that we played Bozo Buckets with ping pong balls. You know, you've seen it. I don't know why I'm showing the motion with it.
Because you're explaining it, and for those of you listening, so at the show that I was at, that I was mentioning before, Dan had hooks in his eyes, dangling a fruit basket, and people were taking ping pong balls to win a prize, and the prize was a 3D printed Danny Dorito.
I was going to be pissed if you didn't bring up the Danny Dorito. That thing took me so much time. I'm an artist. It's
Truly.
what I am now. So one time we were doing this hanging basket thing at an after party for a Netflix show that I probably won't say because they care. And a drunk woman did not know the rules of the game, and she walked up and she just hit the basket like a slam dunk, and it tore the hooks out of my eyes. And for the first time, I was forced to like confront, is this going to mess up my face forever? I was good. There was a huge line, like a bruise where the hook sits inside of my eyelid, and I had like a black eye for a week. But they paid me like $900 extra. So there is always a price.
There's always a price for the pain.
Always a price. Somebody once told me a whore is someone that does something that everyone does, but for money. And I was like, yes. Yes, they are.
That is insane. So you would classify yourself as just a whore, somebody who's, I mean, at least you get paid for your pain. People suffer for free.
I was going to say, yes, as a waiter at the Olive Garden, I was in much more pain than I am currently, and I got paid a lot less.
That's amazing. And then now you are working with like a band of sideshow people.
Yeah. I'd say that I am, but it's mostly just me and the dog. I have a lot of friends around the country and around Texas doing the similar things or interesting things. So I decided to bring us all under the banner of Three-Legged Dog Sideshow. But it really just is more of a loose term. Mm-hmm. There really just is a three-legged dog.
Yeah, tell us about your puppies.
We have 3 animals, all rescues. The 3-legged dog's name is Dapper. He's a dick. I trained him in French as a joke, and it stuck better than the English training. Sam is a massive pit bull lab. He's something wrong with him. We're not sure what. He's a really big rescue. He's so loving. I want to take him to hospitals, but I think he'd kill somebody. And then a one-eyed cat with no lip named Cass. And he's just a bully. But you know, like when dogs are really cute and they're so fun. They yell at me all the time and bring me in. Yeah, he's fun, but he's a bully.
He's a little bully. And what?
Sorry, I'm petting a little dog here, which is why we're having this conversation.
Cinnabon loves all the guests on the podcast. She becomes their best friend. Now, why'd you pick that dog out of the other? Was he your first?
Dapper was my dog. The other 2 are my fiance's dogs. They're my stepkids, as I like to say. Dapper was my first dog. It is just, I didn't actually want a 3-legged animal or a special needs animal. I just saw him online one day, and it was, that's my dog.
Bring up the conversation we were having earlier. You had said that in households, it's like 30% have
something like, and these numbers could all be made up. The internet's a very fickle place. 38% of households have one dog. 30% of households have one kid. So now the market for dogs is higher than children than it's ever been ever.
Because more people want to have dogs and kids. Do you think?
Yeah, but like, I love my dogs, but like a kid grows up and like will like do stuff for you, like put you in a home,
or like put you in a grave. Like there's also the vice versa. You raise a murderer.
Yeah, it's a roll of the die, which like you never know.
But some people roll a 1, and that's my biggest fear when it comes to kids.
Jeffrey Dahmer's dad visited him all the time in prison. Just think about that. Follow through with that.
I wonder what those. Hey, son, what'd you do today?
Famously, he liked. I don't know why we're talking about this. Famously, he liked to make his mashed potatoes look like blood and bones. Then he'd eat them in front of people enthusiastically, and that's why he got killed in prison.
So he was just a creep.
Anyway, sideshow.
Anyway, for the sideshow. So anything. What initially drew you to go like in this direction?
Money.
Just straight up money? And you just realized it paid you the most, so you were just like, I'm going to go for like the most extreme?
I moved to Austin to be a musician. Mm-hmm. Didn't go great, which is fine. I began to realize very quickly, even if you're a successful musician, you're broke. There's no money to be had. And
very
unfortunately,
true.
We live in a world where you need to get paid a little bit. And then one day I went on a date to a place called the Museum of the Weird on the historic 6th Street in downtown Austin. And while we were down there, they asked if the date I was with asked if anybody was hiring a performer. They said yes. I came in, and like I said, there's like only 3 people in the country that did Taser at the time. I was the 4th. In sideshow and in magic, everything is essentially the same, like 5 tricks. And if you could do things differently, it's going to take you a lot farther than just doing normal things. I mean, there's a script for the hammering a nail in your face that almost everybody uses called the Burkhart, because that's the name of the guy who originally wrote it. So fat and full of food today. But, yeah, so I showed him. I got a job immediately. And then I remember the first weekend I ever did. It was the same weekend that I got paid the most at a job I had. I've sold bongs most of my adult life. It's usually either like performing, selling bongs, performing, selling bongs. And I got a job where they were paying me like 4% commission on everything. And I got a paycheck for like 40 hours that was like $450. And people look at me like, holy crap, that's so small. At the time, I was like, I've never seen so much money.
Yeah.
So I got that on a Friday. Saturday and Sunday, I worked my first 2 shifts at the museum. And I made more money than I'd ever made in 12 hours doing this. Don't get me wrong, I tased myself in the face like 30 times. But like, I got paid. So
you just became...
It became financially more viable to hurt myself. And that's kind of when I realized capitalism is a trap meant to keep us all in low-paying wages. And if you want to get out of it, you got to work.
Oh, my God, Dan. You are one of the most amazing human beings I've ever freaking met. Like,
Thanks. I'm also taking my shoe off while we're having this conversation. So
I know.
You can add multitasker to that too.
I'm just dumbstruck by your like capabilities and your threshold for pain, because I am such a wimp when it comes to getting hurt. Like even getting tattoos, I have them, but they hurt and I flinch and I wince and like.
You know how they say you can't tear your own ear off? It only takes like a certain amount of pressure to tear your ear off, literally.
Sure.
Yeah, your body won't let you. I like to just tell people you can do it if you really put your mind to it.
Are you also like a fan of like comics and movies? Are you a big?
Yeah, but like, who the fuck is it?
There are some people who just don't ever like give time to like.
Oh no, I was a nerd. I think everyone I know that's ever been a circus performer, a circus performer, a magician. Everyone's just a big old fucking nerd. You kind of got to be to want to get into like pushing the limits of the human imagination kind of stuff.
What kind of like comics and books did you read as a kid that you really liked? And or maybe as an adult, what'd you like?
Okay, I got to tell you, you're pretty good at this so far. A lot of people don't ask the hard-hitting questions. My favorite book series is a book series called Cirque du Freak. Mm-hmm. It's about a traveling vampire freak show. It really stuck with me, obviously.
So cool.
Yeah, well, as I got older. Hang on, I'm going to get comfortable.
Go ahead.
Oh, my balls.
This is why we have an editor.
We are good. Leave it in. They want to know.
They want to know the good stuff.
So, yeah, I can unbutton my belt a little bit more for you. Anyway, yeah, so comics, The Punisher is probably my favorite, which it really sucks this day and age.
Or the
Just see a
Punisher's
Punisher skull
being
everywhere, getting co-opted.
for like police, right? Like if you support the police, you support the Punisher. But then if you were actually a
Punisher
fan,
wasn't a cop.
I
Yeah.
know. He actually was anti-cop, wasn't he?
He just was anti anybody that was a dick.
Oh, okay. So
But I'd like to leave it at that.
what is he? He's like a neutral evil.
We can really get into this if you want. When Ghost Rider... No, we're not doing that. It's just... All comic books for me growing up were a moral compass.
Okay.
Because I didn't really have one at home. Didn't really have any figures in my life. So like the Punisher and Captain America, specifically Marvel, really gave me like a basis to look at situations and ask, well, what would X do? And what would be the morally right and morally wrong decision? So that's kind of why I was a big fan as a kid.
So you were like the nerd that was all like, what would Superman do in this situation? But not Superman. You'd actually pick somebody like the Punisher.
I would never pick Superman in any situation whatsoever. I also realized we've been doing this for a minute, but can I swear?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, cool. Just making sure.
Yeah, go for it.
That's usually a pre-question.
I feel like it's like the most authentic version of somebody. If someone was like every other word was like this, that, like, of course we don't want to include incredibly terrible racial slurs, but like,
I think we're good on that. But after working at the museum and doing like a lot of kids shows, I know how to turn it off. I just don't I don't need to if I don't need to.
No, go ahead. Say fuck if you'd like.
Boop. I got nothing.
You asked permission, then you gave nothing.
Well, it'll come out naturally. We don't need to focus on it.
Okay, perfect. You had the moral compass. Which superhero did you specifically kind of draw your moral compass from?
Captain America, because he didn't fuck with Nazis.
Specifically.
As a young Jewish boy in the south suburbs of Chicago,
I
don't fuck with Nazis.
Hell yeah.
And from a town that has one of the few active KKK clubhouses in America.
Hell yeah.
I've been fucked with by a lot of Nazis.
That's awful, dude. I'm anti.
Yeah, I tend to keep that shit to myself usually.
Anti-skinhead, bro. That's so weird.
That's good. It would be very awkward for the rest of this conversation if you were like, oh man, but like Hitler, it's a little right.
No, he's a little Reich, but he's not. No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, well, when you put it like, no, I'm not going to go down that line. I'm joking here. You said that before we started the podcast that you were bullied a lot as a kid, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And do you now wish that like if you could go back in time and talk to like your younger self because you were so bullied and you could see like a glimpse into the future of how things are going to turn out for that kid, would there be a message that you'd like to give him?
No, because that kid would be very, very freaked out. I was afraid of everything as a kid. I had a lot of anxiety. It took many years of facing the world and understanding what I should and shouldn't be afraid of until I grew up enough that traveling around the country, being in the middle of very dangerous situations, putting myself in really dangerous situations, not nearly as scary as it was. But if little me saw what I do now, he'd be out.
He'd be out. He would have tapped out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's more to it, like if he had known who I'd become, our moral values, our relationships. It's like we're getting married, we have our home, we have our kids.
Yeah, you have such good things happening.
Happy person, yeah, I'm like a happy person, and the adventures that it's brought me on, the people I've got to meet, especially considering like music was never going to take me there.
Right.
Then that's really cool. But just watching the show. No, terrified of that.
Terrified of yeah, that single glimpse would terrify anybody. Like on the normal scale of. I've
done a lot of kids shows, and I've seen some kids. For the record, most children do not care about Circus Sideshow.
Sure.
Adults are the ones who get really freaked out. Kids either are super into it, don't understand what they're seeing, or are just not impressed, or are just like. They want to play with you. They just want to yell at you and be part of the show because they're just little kids. I was definitely one of the ones that probably just would have kept crying in the back.
I want to hear more of your stories because you just feel like you're so full of them. And the fact that the person that you described a second ago, like who you were like in your past self, is so different from the Dan that I know now. Like it just seems like you've gone total opposite. Like you went full 180 in the opposite direction.
When we were in high school, all my friends were addicted to heroin. I was in West Side Story. Extracurriculars do keep your kids off drugs. But my friends are all doing drugs and psychedelics and being like, we're free thinkers and we have ideas. So I used to watch all the same crap everybody watches, like Waking Life, to feel like we are existentially better than everyone. And then at 21, I moved to Asheville, North Carolina. It's a hippie town, very much like Austin, just a lot smaller and concentrated. It's like 100,000 people. And that's like when I started meeting people that backtrack. My best friend that I moved down there with, he was always the most forward-thinking person in our group of friends. We got down to a place where there were other forward-thinking people and open minds and very radically different backgrounds, and really just you see the melting pot of people. I think most people get that experience in college, but we didn't fucking go to college.
Right. Well,
And he lost it. He became an electrician, and I'd never talked to him anymore. I saw all these amazing people and thought, fuck, I gotta up my game. Mm-hmm. And then began being taught by people about equality and really understanding, privilege as just like a white cis guy, and understanding people's opinions and views and being able to have conversations, like actually listening. And that was I'm very grateful for that. And then I moved to Austin, and that's when the career portion started, and I was able to take those lessons into this new portion of my life.
That's awesome. That's really awesome that you actually had that diversity pool or that really diverse pool of thought.
4 40-year-old lesbians taught me more about life than anyone else.
4 40-year-old lesbians. And they were all from North Carolina?
Oh, God, I don't know, Washington, North Carolina, all around the country. Asheville is like Austin. Nobody's from there.
No, it's just a place where everyone goes and then settles.
Yes.
Well, not settles in a bad way.
No, what I was going to say is not going to be a thing. There is a Native American curse on the town that anyone that settles there will never be able to leave. But I think I got out because the Jewish blood.
So they're it doesn't apply to you.
I don't have white guilt. So there you go.
There you go.
I'm fine with saying that.
Admitting it on the record. But I want to ask, with all the things that you're doing, because you just came back from California, you drove halfway across the country and back, then you're doing shows, then you're kind of living this life where it seems super chaotic. How do you keep balance?
Well, that specific trip was because we haven't done much lately, just given the nature of COVID. It's been really interesting interesting is the positive word. It's been great having the entire entertainment industry go in flux for the last couple of years. Shut down, we're back, new wave, shut down. So it had been a little bit, and we had I'm allowed to say I auditioned for America's Got Talent, but I'm not allowed to say what happened. A lawyer threatened me.
Wow.
But that was the whole point to LA. So I figured, hey, let's make it more of a trip. Let's have fun. Let's do some stops, see some people, do some shows, et cetera, et cetera. And that's usually how my life was before. Keeping the balance is just, you just roll with the punches and keep going.
There's no method to the madness. You're just kind of waking up every day and just being like, oh, today's this day.
It was different before I had a home life. At 30, like I said, now we have a house. We have bills, responsibilities, animals. We're getting married. I never really had a home before then. I've been homeless at numerous points in my life. I've lived in a lot of cars. I've lived in a lot of communal living situations. A lot of fluidity, and where do you hang your head? And when you don't know where you're going to sleep that night, there is no wake up in the morning. What am I going to do today? It's just, how are we going to get through today?
Yeah, that's a big one, man. Because I've been in similar situations, and it's interesting to look at life when you're on top of the wave compared to when you're way at the bottom of the swell.
Yeah, it also sucks because you're I know I could handle it, but man, I went to Disney World. It was great. I want to do that again.
Of course. And now that you have some stability, actually this 420 marks 3 years clean off of cocaine. And thank you. And then being with my wife, we met that same month that I quit.
Oh, damn.
And she met me at my absolute lowest. She met me at my absolute worst with my account in the negative, and she's helped rehabilitate me. And it's not a woman's job to rehabilitate their man, though I everything that I have around that we're currently sitting on, everything that's around me, it all comes from me. I provided all of this, but none of this is mine. All of it is hers, because she met me when I was at my worst, saw the potential in me, and then built me up.
And now you know that you can't be any worse than that level. Well, don't try.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely some sort of financial thermostat set at play here. You know what a financial thermostat is? It's this It's this idea that once, just like a thermostat, if something's set at 70 or 75, if it gets too hot, it brings it down to 75, and if it's too cold, it brings it up to 75, right? There's always constant equilibrium. And I feel that people have a financial thermostat where once you're set to making a certain amount, it doesn't matter how much you get extra or how much you lose, you go right back to equilibrium every time. So that's why growing yourself and being able to hold a higher capacity allows you to, get to a next level. So in your situation right now, where you're sitting right now, if something terrible were to happen and everything were to fall apart, I believe that you'd have the capability to get back to where you are right now.
Oh, we've done that. We're good.
Over and over again, right?
Oh, I mean, even just COVID, we went from very, very lucrative income through performance to nothing, and just having to rebuild it when things started opening up again.
Especially with all the different types of mandates and all the problems that they had with having people just kind of in close proximity. You do very close-up magic or close-up performances.
It's cool. At this point in my career, we just call it magic.
It really,
people will figure it out when they see.
It really is magic. I just don't know how you do the things that you do. And then you also do comedy.
Oh, that's the hardest thing I've ever done.
Why would you say it's like your hardest thing? Because you have the personality, you're funny, you're great on stage.
Oh, because comedy has structure. Comedy and people, when they're at a comedy show, have very, very high expectations. Mm-hmm. And when somebody already comes and sits down and goes, "Make me laugh," it's already harder to make them laugh because now they're like, "Whoa, I'm sorry, here we go." When you're doing sideshow, like nobody ever knows. I've had guys sit down and be like, macho, like fuck this kid. He's got like a little personality and he's all upbeat with his little haircut. And then they end the show with changed expectations because you're hurting yourself. I've had people sit down like, this is going to be funny, and then they're terrified. I mean, I've made people cry and vomit. It's awesome.
What?
Comedy, everyone is trying to do the exact same thing. Make people laugh.
Yeah.
It's fucking rough, man.
While sideshow, you don't really even care what the outcome is. You just do your thing and whatever comes.
That's true. I do not care how it goes because I've had shows that people loved where nobody said anything and nobody clapped and everyone was deadpan silent because they were freaked out.
But they loved it?
Yeah, but then afterwards everyone's like, oh my God, that was so... I've had shows where people were screaming, hooting and hollering and too into it. By the way, whenever somebody, the balloon dog thing? I put a balloon in my nose and inflated out my mouth. Yeah, whenever I do that, sometimes you get like a sexual, from the crowd, and it's like, you just fucking figured something out about yourself.
Wow.
Yeah, I just don't care. It doesn't matter. When I did the Your Mom's House podcast, I was a little nervous backstage for two reasons. One, I pissed on myself. A little bit of dribble, and I thought, my father passed away 2 years ago. I remember thinking, this is such a dad thing. He pissed on himself everywhere we went. You motherfucker, you're up there.
So you associated you peeing yourself with the loving memory of your past father?
He pissed on himself all the time growing up. It was generally like, oh my God. But anyway, so there's that, and then I'm about to walk on stage to like 1,400 people, more people than I've ever performed for before. And I was like, do I have stage fright? And then I walked on stage and it was like, no, I don't.
The minute you go up there,
it's fine. This could go terribly. I'm still going to go home afterwards.
Who got to tase you in the nose? Did you do it yourself?
Show?
Yeah.
Tom Segura.
Tom let you? You let Tom do it?
Oh, yeah. I was the plan. When I got so originally they reached out to a friend of mine who was a natural born performer. He has ectrodactyly, the genetic abnormality where you have lobster boy hands.
Yeah.
But we don't say that.
Right.
So just a way to describe it to people.
Right.
But he passed it on to me because he wasn't sure if he was going to be right for the show. Not really right for the show, and I think that was probably the right decision, just given the nature of the audience. And I've loved Tom Segura for years.
Yeah.
He's one of my top 3 comedians.
Same.
I've listened to his albums numerous times over and over again, listened to the podcast. So to get that phone call was just like, holy shit. So then meeting him, but that was another thing, is I was really worried when I met him I was going to be fanboy, flustered, stuttery. Instead, he walked in and he was wearing a cowboy hat and cowboy boots, and he looked like an idiot. And before I could think, I went, nice hat. It's like, thanks, man. I was like, oh, shit, you made fun of him. Good for you, Dan.
I love it. That was such a fun experience.
That was up until America's Got Talent, which I still can't talk about, was probably the highlight of my career.
Oh, my gosh. I need to know more about it.
And you'll need to find out when I do, because a lawyer took me aside and said, you may not be on television and you can't talk about it, but you can tell people you were here. So.
I'm glad that they took you into the back alley with a bat and they were just like, listen here, man. These are the terms and conditions.
It's meet Terry Crews, get threatened. It's like, oh, shit, they back to back that one.
I love it, dude. This has been a really fun conversation. I want to wrap it up with something a little bit on brand with more like the positive and the motivational thing. For a lot of people who are starting out in their craft and want to do something that's extreme, right? They want to be someone like you and be performative and do like the crazy and do the stuff that other people aren't willing to do because they're in that mindset. And people like you, there needs to be more people like you, but there's a barrier for them to acknowledge. And I'm sure you went through that same barrier and you overcame it. And now you are where you are. So for the people who want to follow in your footsteps or in a place like you, what kind of advice would you give to them?
There's a trick in Sideshow where you either break a wooden arrow or an 8-foot piece of steel rebar with the hollow of your neck.
I've done both of those things.
You've done this before. Yeah. 'Cause they do it at a lot of workshops. So yeah, you probably would be familiar with this. And there's a lesson in how you do that. It's when you're pushing up against, it's like 60 pounds of pressure. When you're pushing up against it and it's pushing up against the hollow of your throat, it's going to really feel like you should stop because it hurts and it's really uncomfortable. Don't. Keep pushing through it. And the arrow will always break before your neck does. Mm-hmm. And there's a lesson there of even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's scary, and even if you think you're really going to hurt yourself, keep going because you're probably going to be fine.
That is such a beautiful note to end on.
Boom.
Dan Block, let the people know where people can find you.
We are on the Instagrams at 3-Legged Dog Sideshow and 3leggedDogSideshow.com if you want to check out the shows. Every Monday at the Highball South Alamo Draft House. In Austin, Texas, we have either a comedy show or a variety show. Come check it out. It gets weird.
Love it. Thank you for being such a guest and bringing your fun stories. And
thanks for having me. This has been fun.
I'm glad you had fun.
Sparkling water and a dog.
I had so much fun. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Carpe Natem Podcast. If you loved this episode, please consider leaving a positive rating and review on Apple Music or iTunes. It takes 30 seconds for you, but for us, it helps spread positivity to more people during these chaotic times. It helps build a community, and it makes me smile from ear to ear. Speaking of community, we have a Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Carpe Natem. Just answer the 3 questions to get access to some extra motivation and inspiration for your timeline. If you would like to support the podcast, screenshot this episode and share this to your story and tag me at Carpe Natem 114. That's going to be my handle across all platforms, including TikTok. So if you would like to give me a follow, I would genuinely appreciate it. If you haven't already, please rate us and subscribe on Spotify or anywhere you enjoy your podcasts. And lastly, you can find all episodes, linked to resources and opportunities for coaching and mentoring from me at carpenatem114.com. I cannot thank you enough for spending part of your day with me. You are all rock stars taking the necessary steps to be your best selves, willing to do whatever it takes, and ready to grab life by the butt cheeks. So until next time, this is Nate De La Hoya-Reynoso signing off.